Now we move on to Samarkand, which uses the Issus map with some modifications. I guess background-wise, close the door. We're doing this because, not the door, but playing this because I don't want to learn the rules to anything else. I'm trying to work my way through the rules of On to Paris. And, okay. We have the Macedonian garrison at Samarkand is being attacked by revolting Persians. Remember, Darius is dead by this point. Supposedly. He won the big battle, but in mind, I mean, it would be almost impossible to make it through the entire campaign and be successful the way Alexander was. There are close enough battles that, you know, even probably a decent player would have difficulty doing so, unless he was playing incompetence. But, and that's kind of a neat idea. Like, you know, play it until Alexander loses a battle and then the other person switches in and does the same or whatever. Okay. So anyway, Alexander is not present here. He's dispatched a column under someone who just learned how to be a general. He was an interpreter and was made one of his generals. This, what's his name here? Pharnaces. And in the historical situation, apparently Pharnaces did not really like losing battles, and he kind of had a mental breakdown during this one. He was completely outmaneuvered in order to get to this battle, and then when the battle itself started, things started going wrong. And you can look, the Macedonian leadership is not good across the board. However, there aren't a lot of pieces on either side. The Persian leadership isn't anything special either. So, strangely, they suggest that this, because of the small number of pieces, would make a good introductory scenario. My view is it would make a terrible introductory scenario, and I'll show you why. First of all, I mean, it's going to be short and it's going to be quick, and there aren't a lot of pieces to move around. But you use the Issus map, but there's no levels in it. The river can only be crossed at the ford, which is going to be the rocky hexes marked on the river here, which are all over the place. But they're not rocky. They're normal river, but they're not actually, which the rule says, but they're not actually normal river. They're whatever the Jaxartes crossing rules are, which is much more extreme than what you face with any of the other rivers that are in the battles. Okay, then to add to that, we add some special rules. First of all, the deployment is going to be, the Macedonians start off the map and they enter between 3527 and 3828, which I guess will be down around here. And they suggest using the square defense rule. I don't remember that, but I think it will be important because the Persians have all cavalry. So then special rules for Pharnaces. This isn't too bad. Okay. Andromachus can command only infantry, Karanis only cavalry, Pharnaces can command any units. But every time the Macedonian take a route, Pharnaces makes a roll. On a 0 through 7, he's removed from play. All Macedonian units make a TQ check, adding 2 to the die roll. Ouch. Once Pharnaces is removed, only those Macedonian units stacked with their leader can be rallied or use recovery. Well, there aren't a lot of units So it's not that, and these guys don't have a terribly high command rating, so I don't think it's that, but it's going to slow down their ability to cope. The Persians will be placed on the map at the completion of the Macedonian pre-game entry turn. The Macedonians set up anywhere on the map at least 12 the Persians, anywhere at least 12 hexes from any Macedonians. After the Persians have been placed on the board, play proceeds normally. Okay, the Macedonians retreat to the south, Persians to the north. The victory conditions. The Macedonians have to leave the map by turn 20 between 4,500 and 5,100. Just be... The forests are on here, 45 to 51. It's this little section here. So, you know, they make the crossing and then push their way over. And chances are you'd want... well, the Persians, it's a hard call. Do you want them, you know, to try to cross the river and get away from the Macedonians, or do you want them to fight the Macedonians and give up space more carefully or more slowly? Anyway, the Persians win if they can rout the Macedonians or prevent them from exiting by turn 20. Nothing about routing the Persians as a victory condition, but if it happens, well, then you count how long it'll take, I guess, to get off the board. Because they do have their route points. The Macedonians, 23 route points. Well, that's going to happen real fast, isn't it? And the Persians is also 23. So why is this terrible for a beginning game? Well, I would say probably the worst part is the river crossing rules. I would rather, honestly, do Gaugamela as my introductory game, although maybe not with the elephants and this, that, and the other, but this certainly wouldn't be. The only real bonus to doing something this small as your introductory game is you don't feel like you've wasted something if you make bad decisions, I guess. And, you know, it doesn't take long to set up. Nothing starts on the board, right? All right, let's get this started. It's one of those rules I haven't used, so I'll go over that briefly. You know, there's another one I had never used, which I was noticing before I started this, which is the prearranged withdrawals. Even opposed, I don't find myself using them. Sometimes I find myself contemplating them, but unless you're trying to sucker someone into, you know, a cav-centered army, I don't know how valuable it is. And usually it might have made sense at Gaugamela, but I don't know if the chariots can use it. Okay, so what's up with the square? Those double-sized hoplites can use it, and they expend all their movement points to do it. When they're not in an enemy zone of control, they get a little square marker, which I had somewhere. I don't remember where they are. Are they the back of these? No, those are cav charges. There they are. Okay. That gives the square a movement allowance of 1 with all frontal hexes. They can't initiate shock combat, although they can march next to a unit. They retain their shock relationship. However, its size will be quartered, which can reduce your table a little bit, but it's not that big a deal. Missile cohesion hits, though, will be doubled. So if you're in square, well, these light cav archers are going to be a pain in the ass, but the cataphracts will probably be less dangerous. Alexander did it at Cathartes. Okay. Double side, yeah, we got these already. All right. So I guess I start moving on the board, and I got to bring them all in off the bat. And I remember somewhere, and it may be in the Syracuse module, but I couldn't find it here. Nor in the base rules, but I didn't try all that hard. There's something that might disallow this, or defeat this break in the game or whatever. But when you bring units, well, bringing these units on the board, I'm looking at what I have. Okay, Carnatus can command the 3 infantry, and Andromachus can command, say, 2 of the light cav, and Pharnaces can command the other. And I can't move any of my leaders because I've committed all my points to moving my units. Now, if I get a a momentum, I'd be able to move them. But what I'm going to do is, I guess, just say coming on the board, you don't have to actually pay for the commands for the leaders for that first activation. The leaders can move with their units. There's no line commands in this one at all, so, you know, I'm not going to be able to move on the board using a line command, which would have been a reasonable option instead. Maybe I can pretend there's a line command. Well, I don't think time is actually the issue here. I would have set my Persians up on the other side of the river, except the Macedonians got a quick jab forward. One of their leaders got an extra activation, and that'll give them time to kind of set up and try to cross the river, which probably is not how this battle's supposed to go at all, because so much of the space is over here, and that's where you probably want the cav to engage. But I'd have to set up over here, from here and back. You know, I don't know. I'm just thinking, if the Macedonians manage to make it across, now it's going to be really hard for them though. They're going to have to shift over here and try to cross up here, and then I can shift my Persians across. The crossing rules for the Jaxartes, which this applies to, are just hellacious. This is not the battle that occurred, but given that charge forward, I think I'm just going to go with it and see what effects it has, because I think this is as good a defensive position as otherwise. Okay, end of first real turn, I think. And, well, I mounted up into charge formation. I guess I could have probably deployed in it, I have no idea. But it didn't matter. But you can see the Macedonians getting kind of all disorganized, and that's because they can't move their forces forward as in a continuous thing. So, for example, he could throw forward his cav, or he could move, one or the other. And with a 1, he's not going to get a momentum very often. He actually got a momentum, which is why 2 of these phalanx units have moved forward. But this is just goofy, you know. I don't think this is a scenario they put a lot of thought into. For example, fighting here seems a lot worse than trying to defend the river line. We'll see. We'll see if there's, you know, a capability to slip in through there. But the Jaxartes river crossing rules say, you know, you're basically hosed trying to cross against an opposing force. And well, I can set up as far away as I like. I just can't set up as close as I like. So the river line looks really solid. Again, maybe I don't understand, and we'll see something happen a little differently. And it just keeps getting goofier. I mean, I've got units jacking off here, there, and everywhere. It's like, you know, it's like a Three Stooges comedy rather than, if you can call that comedy, rather than the kind of orderly progression you'd assume that units would have. If this is representing his command structure, yeah, he deserves to lose this battle. He can't even keep his units, you know, within a quarter mile of each other, right? It does remind me, though, you know, there's a lot of fake news, and I read Facebook and get exposed to a lot of it. And I saw something today which I am hoping to all hope is fake, because if it's real, I don't know if there's a purpose to life anymore. And it's that bubble wrap is being designed to no longer pop. You know, I mean, I can live with the Russians hacking the election. I can live with all those people Hillary killed and her getting pardoned. You know, I can deal with Trump scamming so many people and saying Republicans are stupid and this, that, and the other. But bubble wrap, man? Really? Already getting confused by the map on this one, and I gotta tell you, this makes it a horrible introductory scenario when you've got to pretend that the map doesn't have what it is. So this is all level 1 terrain. I think the implication of that, which isn't spelled out in the scenario, but there are enough special rules to try to deal with the map situation, is that these are not sheer slopes, because sheer slopes are drops. Now, I looked up sheer slope because I saw that shit and said, wow, nothing can go through that. And in fact, the steep slope here, the only thing I can bring over that is my infantry, which is the phalanxes, and they get pretty hosed going over it. Well, I think it's all open, so I'm gonna treat these as if they don't exist, as well as the shifts in terrain level, because otherwise this is essentially an impossible scenario. If you had this kind of defense with forces, you know, holding the only crossable area is 3 hexes, there's just no way. To question my decision to use the static defense in that case, I mean, the terrain looked so good, I thought, wow, that's going to be tough to cross. Yeah, no. It still is because of the river, and that's going to cause some serious problems. There's no question of that. So I don't know if it was a terrible idea, but the better maneuverability of all this space down here would have advantaged the Persians for one thing. When the command falls apart, when our erstwhile leader leaves the scene. Otherwise, though, I kind of prefer being back there. If it weren't for that, that's just going to hinder the Macedonians' capability to react so much. We've got kind of a mess occurring here with, you know, the troops trying to form up. The only thing really of note is that I have a couple of horse archers here, and they're able to plink fire. The Macedonians have only javelin horsemen, which can't shoot at that range. They can shoot out of the river, but they got big penalties coming out of there. But the cataphracts are getting kind of confused because they're slow to move because of the formation situation. So that it's going to, I can't just, you know, rush around and defend wherever the enemy is going to be and prevent him from crossing, period. He also has, I think, what, 3, 4, 5, 6 units, 2, 4, 6, 7, probably enough units that he can slip by my units coming from the river into regular land. So the Macedonians have lined up in a situation where they're almost ready to start doing anything. Now, I can't use the phalanxes at all until I clear the river line, basically, because they're helpless. But honestly, the cav is pretty helpless too. So I almost don't see a point in playing this scenario. As long as the Persians defend the river line, I think they're invulnerable, essentially. But we'll see. If they had more light cav and less, and maybe if I didn't form my back chains up in charge formation, but that gives them their superiority if they hit the light cav, then, and it also gives them, I think they don't get their defensive bonus unless they're in charge formation. So, you know, not that they need that because they can't be attacked. But basically, yeah, the phalanxes are useless, so I'm left with 3 light cav, and I've got to kind of clear the line, you know, or at least hold an edge so that I can move the phalanxes over and get them across. I just don't see it as possible. So we have the first action. Our fearless leader throws some of his light cav into the water. They can't go any further. He doesn't get a continuation, of course, because he sucks. This guy over here launches one of the light cav at it. Otherwise, he's just firing missiles. And with one continuation, is able to destroy it. It's routed. Points over. Added to the chart. And 23 rail points. Huh? Now we have to deal with the special rule here. So on a 0 through 7, Pharnaces will be removed from play, and all kind of problems may happen. So it's pretty likely. Okay, so he leaves. Now this doesn't count as a kill. He just, I guess, runs away. Yeah, I know what you see. Okay, so now we have to make route checks or TQ checks against every Macedonian unit to see if they leave. And again, you know, even without this, I think that river is an impenetrable barrier. But All right, so we check this one. So we do the first one, 6, 7, 8. That's going to be 3 hits on him. Okay, he routes. You can see how much fun this is going to be. Let's check him. Okay, he holds, and now our phalanx is 9, 10, 11. Oh, I'm sorry, these are just hoplites. So that's 6 hits on that. That's going to route. And it just routes, right? No, it's a 6 hits plus 1 and gives it a 7. So it's up 2. So now it makes its saving throw. I guess it still gets that, even though it's in column. And it survives and drops down to a 5. And let's get this guy moving, just because otherwise I forget. This one over here, what did I say? Plus 2. 7, 8, 9. He's going to take 4 hits. That puts him to a 5. That's routed even. Oh, he routes. We'll get him out of there in a bit. And then likewise, and these are not good results. I mean, but I don't think it makes much difference. And then this guy, 0, 2, he's fine. All right, we got to pull this guy back. And remember, these things can't be rallied, so that's 10 more points on here. Basically, we lose another one of the hoplite units, and it's all over. Okay. Oh, this guy got to move back. One. Let's just get him into play here. I think I can get him this way. Okay. I thought I couldn't move my Macedonians unless they were directly commanded as well. No, it's only rally and recovery. So this guy, well, he's following his routed units, trying to rally them because, well, if I don't have at least 4 units, I probably can't win. That's my figuring. I don't know. But everything else, this pulled back. Can't leave it up there to just get shot at. I don't have anybody to recover the units. And that was my best chance to get across. The Persians are basically unaffected. I did manage to rally or recover some of the losses on this thing, but there's going to be plenty of time to do it again. And we'll take another shot, you know, if we get a chance to. If we don't, this is going to be a long game because the Persians don't actually have to cross the river and do anything. I may just call it a concession if this unit routes off the board, because I only have 3 units left. Another turn, Macedonians failed to rally that unit, and it gets scored. 1 more loss, 1 more point loss, and it's over. But everything there is a reasonable unit. Meanwhile, rallied up some of the light cav here, brought them up to speed. A reasonable Macedonian leader at this point would just leave. Couldn't be done in the historical battle because they were being fought over here, but the goal is to cross and win, and being reasonable isn't necessarily something that one does in games, I guess. I'm always torn by that. I mean, I feel like in the face of this, I should just be leaving. But I think I've got 1 more shot at it. I put some of these guys here. We'll see what happens, because there can be some rearrangement, and it's very hard to move these hoplite units and get them into place where they can do any good at all. They have to sit next to the river, then spend a turn moving into the river, then spend a turn moving halfway out of the river, then spend a turn moving the rest of the way out of the river. Well, an activation. Well, if you don't think that the Persians are going to wipe them out during those problems, I don't know what it means. Now, what is our victory condition on this? Because I think it's the Macedonians just have to exit. So the less units they have, the easier that becomes. So I can still win with 3 units as long as my force hasn't broken completely. I can't lose another unit though. So this should be over pretty soon. Now it's time for whack-a-mole. I move some cav around. I can't cross here anymore, not in any reasonable sense. So, well, I guess I have to move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you know, I'm not going to get a chance to cross here either, right? I have no idea. I think I'm just going to call this stupid thing. Ah, I get another activation. All right, into the water we go. Now, that's 1. No, he didn't do anything. Why is he here? Because anywhere along here, it's just too covered. This is the only area that I think I can cross safely with 2 units. Okay, so we've made it halfway into the water. And now we do not get another activation, so the turn ends. And at this point, the cav is going to beat up on us. And we hope this scenario will be over so we can play something else. And the Persian cav drowns one of the hoplites, and it's over. I mean, I could finish out the turn, but this guy actually still has activations. But the only question is, do I put the remaining hoplite in the water where it too can be killed? And no, I'm done. This is a ridiculously stupid scenario. Now, you could say, okay, yeah, but, you know, it gives you a chance to play around with some stuff and move some pieces. And sure, if nobody falls on the idea that, yeah, I can defend the river line without any problem whatsoever, if they decide to play it out without that aspect of it, then, and play forward of the river line, it might be somewhat more interesting. But the problem is, as a competitive exercise, it's useless because the rules allow you to set up on that side of the river with the Persians. As an introductory scenario, sure, it doesn't have a lot of pieces, but it's got a fair number of little special rules. Not a lot, it's just a page of rules, but it's got all this crap that you have to worry about beyond the system, beyond the core system. There are other scenarios in this game that have a lot, in the original, that have less problems. Now, sure, bigger scenario, but it's pretty straightforward. This one was kind of annoying. These guys don't feel the same as the regular scenarios, but this one doesn't either. The fact that you have, you know, you have to try to ignore the terrain on the map to some extent is really ugly. The fact that the river crossing rules are some special rules that you're only going to use in one other scenario. These things just don't work for me. I would probably say the first scenario, the Charnesis, is probably the best choice. And out of what I've seen so far, I would say the second best choice is Gaugamela, which obviously is too big for, you know, what their view of an introductory scenario is. And it's got so many different types of units in it that I wouldn't suggest it either. After this, I think this is going to be like a fortified position or something. This doesn't look too bad, but it's a little big. I would hope that they dropped this scenario from the new version. I know they folded in scenarios from some of the other, some of the expansions, and given that, you know, this is not a particularly good one to learn by, there were some others that had small piece counts, so I hope You know, the small piece count I don't see as a particular advantage for an introductory scenario. I mean, it's as easy. It's the rules level that really requires you the extra commitment in an introductory scenario. Anyway, let's set this thing up.